Natasha, and thank you so much for joining me today. Well, today we are solving the bold backgrounds problem. Sometimes we have those beautiful or gorgeous pattern papers or gel prints or something that we've created where the backgrounds are just really bold. Now, I have the old lace collection here. This is the 8x8 paper pad by Stamperia. This is gorgeous, but I will say that the patterns are pretty bold and some of them are quite dark. Now, I had actually started chomping into this before I even started filming and then remembered to turn the camera on. So there was an entire sheet of this piece of paper here, and what I have actually done is taken the Master Layouts 4 from Gina. Now this is the front here, but it's a bit hard to see that there's actually a full-sized beautiful scalloped rectangle die in there. And out of that 8x8 sheet, I cut out 2 of these gorgeous pieces, and then of course that bit that's still left underneath these. But this paper is beautiful. It's just dark and quite bold for a background. So I have 2 of my favorite ways. Now there are of course lots of different ways to show you. I'm just going to show you my favorite 2 ways of working through those backgrounds or using them to our advantage. So I did go ahead and fussy cut out a couple of the elements. I cut 2 of these flowers. Now they were identical. I cut one to be slightly smaller so that I could layer them up and they would be a bit dimensional. And then out of here I also cut a couple of tags as well. There are lots of little cut apart pages in here as well as full-size backgrounds. All of the elements are all double-sided. So whatever's on the front, it's got a beautiful backing to them as well. And you use this to your advantage. That's not what my focus is today for this video, but it is a great point of difference about some of the Stamperia products. So I am going to work on this first one first, and I am going to take the Layouts 4 again. This has 2 different hearts in it as well. One of them has some beautiful stitched edging, and one of them is a plain heart. And one of them is a fraction smaller than the other. That is great for lots of techniques. And I mean, automatically I think of the black and white hearts, the wedding cards that we used to make. I have one of those on my channel very early on. Anyhow, this is with 1 layer of vellum. And if you put it right up against it, it sort of blurs the background, but not, we can still see the background very clearly. But if you lift it up a little bit, so for example, if my finger there was the foam tape, it does blur out the background significantly, and you can create a focal point sitting on that, or even have it as the heart. So vellum is a great technique. If you want it to be less see-through and you're going to put it directly down onto your page and not use any foam tape, then I suggest either double cutting your vellum element, or here, of course, I have the layering ones, which I'm going to use as well. So for here, I'm going to pull out a couple of elements that we can pull together. I have this one here is a tag that I I fussy cut from the paper pad, and then I just use some Dina Wakley acrylic paints. Now these paints are very opaque, but if you water them down, they end up being a little more transparent and stunning colours. I love the Dina Wakley acrylic paints. So that is how I got the colours on there. I just used a mixture of these 2. So it does say that they're opaque, as I said, if you use them as is, but watering them down, they don't lose any of their pigment and their colour, but they are going to create a more translucent style that you can use. So vellum is definitely key. It is really, really fun to work with. If you don't have any dyes, then by all means you could just do like a ripped edge and a streak down the middle. You just need to quieten the background so that you can focus on the focal point. That doesn't mean quietening down all of the background, because we still want to see it. That's the point, that the papers are stunning, or the backgrounds that you've created are stunning. We want to feature them. We just need to make sure that your sentiment, or whatever you have in the middle, your focal point, doesn't get lost in all of that going on. Now, I have the Better Together. This is from the gorgeous Robots collection by Andy Skinner, and I absolutely love the stamp, but I also love that little saying that says Better Together. So I have popped that on my little little tag, I guess. It's like a mini tag. And I am going to, actually when I was looking at this, I thought maybe I could pop an eyelet in there as well. I was thinking about a little bit of ribbon or a little bit of twine, and you could just hole punch it and put some twine through it because it's got that sort of old lace feeling, that vintagey, grey, browny sort of look going on. And that's why I wanted to add that little bit of tealy, limey sort of colour, just to throw in a teensy bit of colour for this one, because everything was looking very same. So that's why I did the tag that colour. Now, here I've got out my eyelets. I have a whole range of coloured ones. I do have black ones, white ones. I have bronze ones. These are just a collection from over the years, and eventually I end up just putting them all together in a container, but I'm trying to decide whether I want white or whether I want to go like antique or bronze or gold or silver. All big decisions. But anyhow, I use my Crop-A-Dile, and this has, of course, the two different sizes, hole punches, and then it can also set all of the eyelets as well. That's what it's mainly for. And so I actually did this the wrong way up. Now, it did end up working, but I did crunch it the wrong way up because I wasn't focusing. So it got stuck, but that's okay. But it's all good. These machines are fairly robust and can handle quite a few wrong decisions. I found that out one way or another. Now, once I have got I went with a little white eyelet, and then I'm going to layer up my flower. I put a little bit of the 1mm foam tape in between, just so it gave it a little bit of lift and it separated those layers, but not too much because I didn't want to make this too bulky. I'm putting my card base directly down onto a 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch card base, and then here's where the couple of layers of vellum come in. So again, I'm actually using I believe these are Simon Says Stamp 1mm foam squares, but of course you can get the 1mm foam tape from scrapbook.com. That is fabulous. It comes in 1/4 inch and 1 inch wide rolls, but just anything to give that little bit of a lift. I have really moved towards the 1mm foam tape because it is so versatile. Now, here is where I'm going to add in the second layer of vellum. I am hiding all of my adhesive just behind my hearts, and the reason why I'm using that really skinny double-sided tape is because I'm using things up in my stash, determined to move some things on. And I do find I don't tend to use the skinny rolls, the really skinny rolls of double-sided tape that often, so just having one for when I need it will be ample. So anyhow, moving things on. I am working on the second card now, and one of my favourite ways for knocking back that background or creating a focal point is going to be using a little bit of wet media actually, but it's going to be fine on our cards, I promise. I'm using some 1/2 inch, I think, mint tape. This is new. They have come out with 1/4, 1/2, and the 1 inch, which is what they always had in the mint tape, which I absolutely love. Now, 2 options here. One, you could get yourself a white colouring pencil, and this one here, you can see I did it on some of the scrap. If you coloured in that space that I have created, I've masked off in the centre there, you are going to knock back that background beautifully. So you could use a pencil like that, although that will take me a wee minute to just get the area done that I need. And then another alternative is going to be to use some acrylic paint. Like I said before, with the Dina Wakley acrylic paints, if you add these on, they are quite opaque. If you add a thin layer or you add a little bit of water like I'm going to do, they become a little bit more transparent. So I'm going for somewhere in the middle. I've put a little spray of water on there, and I'm just using a makeup sponge to pop this on. Now, the first layer is going to be pretty transparent, but it's hard to tell when the mint tape is there. Remember that this is actually going to be quite, it will be really good. But if you want a little bit more, like I decided to go, we're going to come in with a second layer. It's a very thin layer, so it's going to dry very fast. And it's not wet enough that it's going to curl up or warp your paper or anything, so that's fine too. I'm using the mint tape as a mask. You could use some post-it notes, you could use some copy paper with removable adhesive underneath, anything that's going to mask it off. I love the Gina K masking. That is also my other go-to if I'm not using mint tape. Then I'm actually taking a white gel pen and using the mint tape as a guide. I'm going to put some little marks around here like faux stitching. This was an old technique or an older technique that I used to do lots, and occasionally it's nice to do it still. Now, as for how I lined up the mint tape, lots of different ways to do it. You could also do it on a grid background, but this has stitching, the die that I cut out from the Master Layouts 4, it has stitching around it as well as the scalloped edge, and so I just used the stitching as a guide with my mint tape, and that way I got a pretty even straight rectangle there in the center. Now, this rectangle is going to be great for stamping my sentiment, and I'll show you that it will be able to, the focal point, the sentiment, will not get lost with a background like this. This set here is called Ribbon Bloom Sentiments from Creative Expressions, and I purchased one of these to sort of try it out to see if I liked the font and the size, because I know that there are a couple of others in the series, and I'm very tempted to go back and get the other ones because I really like these. The font feels a little bit different and a little bit fancy for gorgeous cards, so I really like these. A little bit different to anything else that I have in my stash, which is what I'm looking at when purchasing a product, and I'm going to pop this in my stamping platform just because at this point, you know, we've done some work on the card and we don't want to muck it up, and I wasn't sure if I needed to double stamp it, but actually it turned out beautiful with just the one. So one stamping it is. I'm going to let that dry for a minute because it's pigment ink. You could also throw over a layer of clear embossing powder and that would set it, but I'm going to pop this down on my card base. This card came together very, very, very quickly, and yet I still think it looks stunning. And I'm going to add a little white die cut here. This is actually going to be from Simon Says Stamp. This one is called Leafy Branch, and it has a really good price point. I think it was $7 something US, of course, on the Simon Says Stamp website, which I thought is a pretty good price for a large die. And I'm thinking about all the die cut inlay that I'm going to do with this one. Some nice crisp, clean lines, white lines with some die cut inlay. So that's my plan here, but it goes beautifully on the edge of this one here, just with some glue on the back. It's going to glue down beautifully because it's only on paper. It's not going down onto that vellum that we used on the other card, because of course sometimes when you use wet glues on vellum, it can wrinkle them, it can squish out the sides a little bit and become visible, no matter how invisible your glue is. But anyhow, so I tend not to use wet glue on vellum, but this is just down onto that dry acrylic paint, so we are good to go. A couple of little sparkles or little enamel dots or something like that, and this finishes off this card beautifully. So two of my favorite ways to use those beautiful bold prints, those backgrounds, those paper stashes that you have, that you're sitting there thinking, they're pretty bold, how am I going to use them? Well, this is the perfect way. So thank you so much for joining me today. As usual, all the products will be linked down below if you want to check them out. Other than that, thank you, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!